happiness is not a goal to be achieved. Like a lot of people say that when I buy that car, I'll be happy. When I win the lottery, I'll be happy. When I make that first 5 million, I'll be happy. But if you define it that way, what happens is that you may be happy for a while, then the happiness doesn't last. Then you have to find something else again to get to be happy. And then it doesn't last again. And in the process of achieving it, that journey, you're not happy all the way because you're not there yet, right? Which is insane, because if you define it that way, that means 99.9% of your life, you're unhappy because you're always pursuing something that will make you happy. So to me, I believe don't achieve to be happy. Instead, happily achieve. So enjoy the journey, enjoy the process.
Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Learning Podcast. And if you're unsure, it's a Singaporean podcast dedicated to learning something new from every single guest on this show. And I'm certain I'll never have a podcast bigger than this guy over here. He's a husband, he's a dad, he's a best-selling author of many books with regards to building businesses, investing in finance, and even parenting as well. He's a YouTuber with almost 1 million subscribers. He's an 8-figure investor and trader. At the age of 14, he sold over $2,000 worth of stationery. And at his university days, he sold over $20,000 worth of courses just as a university student. I've never done that in my life before, so I'm like, this guy has achieved a lot, even at a young age, right? Introducing the GOAT, introducing Adam Khoo.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for taking the time to be here. I think before you continue listening to this podcast, right, I think I'll really recommend you check out a podcast that Adam did with Raina. I thought it was a very good interview in terms of showing what he has gone through to become what he is today. So I think this podcast is mostly a continuation of that podcast in terms of his other aspect of work. I must say, I personally only known about your work since like 2019 or so. And I feel like I pretty much missed out a lot of all your content with regards to NLP, self-improvement of that. So if there's one objective I have with this podcast, right, is maybe to shed a little bit more on that, because I know it has been a while since you talked a lot about that as well. Yeah. So NLP, self-improvement, I'm not sure if I have this limiting belief, right? Because at least for me, I've worked for a couple of years. If I don't have enough capital to grow, right, then I need to get more capital first. So I think there's a lot of things I've gotten away from your books as well. And I would love to discuss more about that as well.
Sure.
Yeah. So, okay, going back to the start, right, I think yesterday I was just actually reading your book, the Patterns of Excellence program, right? Could you share the story and how that started? Because I know you also shared that there were failures initially along the way. What was the story behind it? Because it's unfortunate that you're no longer running the program. So hopefully we can take a few good tips away to implement in our lives. Yeah.
So I like to write books and create programs based on things that have changed my own life. So the first book I wrote was I'm Gifted, So Are You. And the first program I created is also called I'm Gifted, So Are You. And that program is on study skills and motivation. Because that is what changed me as a student. I was a lousy student, and that helped me to become one of the top students. And then at a point of time when I was like doing well in school, I said, okay, so what? I got straight A's. There are people who do well in school but don't do well in their career, right? So I have to also learn the other skills of how to be a great entrepreneur and stuff like that. So I attended a lot of NLP courses. So the first one was obviously Anthony Robbins. I went for the fire walk when in my early 20s.
Was it in Singapore?
Yeah. Wow. In my early 20s. There was the first fire walk in Singapore. I actually burned my feet because I was too confident. I was like, I don't need to do this mantra. I just walk. Yeah, I got a bit burned, right? And then after that, I went to the US for all my NLP training. So I was trained by the founder of NLP himself, Dr. Richard Bandler, as well as Dr. Ted James. So I did all my NLP certifications. So at that point of time, there were a lot of people teaching NLP, certifying NLP practitioners and all that. So I said, I want to create my own NLP course. So instead of calling another NLP course, I decided to call it the Patterns of Excellence, because I wanted to make it very practical and application-based. Because a lot of NLP courses at the time was very theoretical. They teach you a lot of theory, but I wanted to do it in such a way that was very practical. And people could see how do you apply it to sales. Because I use a lot of NLP in my own sales, when I was selling stationery, when I was selling my courses and all that. How to use NLP in your relationships. So I applied it at the time in my own relationships, how I got my girlfriends and how I got married, right? How I use NLP in learning, in studying, how I use NLP in entrepreneurship. So I created a program with Stuart Tan, a good buddy of mine, who was also an NLP trainer, and that's how the course started in 2002. And we ran it up to COVID. And then COVID was why we stopped, and we never started it again since then. So actually, Vietnam, they've been kind of like trying to get me to run one last one this September, and I'm still thinking of whether to do it. Yeah, I've not decided yet, actually.
The reason is because you want to spend more time with your family?
That's one thing. I have a lot of family commitments, and also because I've not taught the course now in 4 years. So I have to, in a way, there's a lot of prep to be done. Yeah.
With regards to starting it in Singapore, right, in 2002, right? Because I know you shared in the difficulty of starting it then, right? Could you share more about that first program that you launched? How did it go? Lessons
Wow,
that you
I
learned
have to remember it.
Yeah, I know it's
spoken
probably
about this for a long time.
It's a very long time, but I would love to have you share those details.
I mean, it was very challenging because, you see, when you teach a wealth program, it's very tangible. Like I say, after this program, you're able to grow your wealth, you can make more profits. But Patterns of Excellence is a program where it's very intangible. When I tell people, after this program, you're going to change your life. Huh? Change my life. How to change? It's very intangible, right? But over the years we've run the programs, you can watch a lot of my student testimonials. I had this lady, Chat Min, who was a stroke victim. She was depressed. Her IQ dropped from 100. She was in Mensa. Her IQ dropped all the way below 90 because of the stroke. And she had speech problems. And she was going through depression. And it was going through the NLP, the Patterns of Excellence, that she totally broke through of that. And she became a Toastmaster. Yeah, and she started her own business and all that. Then I had people who also, like Shun Jian, who was out of school, took the course, and then was motivated to start his own internet business. So it has helped people in many ways, whether in their health, in business and all that. So, but when I first started it, how old was I? I was
22 years ago, 28.
28?
50 minus 20. Yeah.
50, 28 years old, right? And it was challenging because at 28 years old, considered very young face, going out there telling people how to change their life, you know? And I used to do a lot of previews where it's a free preview. In those days, you put ads in the papers, people come to your preview and you try to convert them, right? And I remember my first preview, I had 60 people in the room. Right? So I went there and said, NLP can change your life.
What was the profile of the 60 people? Like all kinds of them.
All kinds of people, right? But I can tell you that more than half of them were older than me. Wow. Right? In the 40s and 50s. And I was like 28, right? So I did the whole thing with Stuart. And then in the end, no one signed up.
No one signed up?
Yeah, of course, no one signed up, right? It's the first preview. And I think we spent like about, in those days, you put ads in the papers. There was no internet market. Internet was not around at the time, so we panicked like, oh my God, right? So we didn't give up, and then we fine-tuned the preview, and we did another preview. I think another 50 people came, and then in the end, one guy signed up. I think his name was Abdul Rahman.
You still remember the name?
Rahman.
Wow.
Because he was the first guy who signed up for our course. First guy who signed up. Like, of course I remember his name, right?
Yeah.
Abdul Rahman, right? Yeah. And then from there, we kept doing previews. And of course, after a while, you get better and better at it. And eventually, we started our first class with, I think was it maybe 30 people? Our first NLP class in 2002. And so then from there, it grew and grew and grew and grew. And before we ended in COVID, it was hundreds of people in a Patterns of Excellence program. And it was really a life-changing program. I mean, throughout the entire program, every day people are crying, breaking through their limitations and having these breakthroughs in their life, basically.
Can you give us a preview of that? Because you're no longer running it, right? And I understand NLP to be a very powerful concept to change lives, right? Is there any other tips, nuggets? Because like if you pick up NLP by yourself by reading a book, it's different rather than experiencing it, right?
It's like learning karate from a textbook.
Yeah. So like in terms of things are there any resources that you would advise people to go, or do people have to really go for like US trips? Like
I think Tony Robbins is still the best guy.
Oh.
He's still the guy to see. I mean, while he's still alive and while he's still not too old, right? Tony is still the best in the world in NLP. Of course, he doesn't call it NLP anymore for legal reasons. He had to change the name years ago. But it's basically NLP. But he has, of course, added a lot of his own modifications over the years and enhanced it. Right? NLP, in a nutshell, it's basically how do you develop personal mastery. So personal mastery is the ability to master yourself, to master your thoughts, your emotions, and your habits in order to get the results you want. And it's how to bring out the best in yourself. So that, for example, when you are in a lazy state, how do you motivate yourself instantly? When you're feeling fear, doubt, frustration, how do you get out of that state and feel confident and feel, driven, right? And the other part is people mastery, which is not just bringing out the best in yourself, but how do you bring out the best in other people? How do you use language, words to inspire someone, to influence someone in a positive way, and to, get them to take action? Yeah.
When it comes to a great NLP practitioner, I think you mentioned Ernest many times to
Yeah.
say that he was a big role model for you, right?
Yeah.
What makes a great NLP practitioner versus a average one?
I would say it's walking the talk, right? So I give you an example. Like when I went to the US, so some of these NLP people, they'll tell you the theory behind it. Like, you can use NLP to get someone excited, very excited. But the way they talk, you want to sleep, right? So it's like, walk the talk, right? It's like they tell you the theory, but but people like Ernest and Tony Robbins, they actually, when they talk, you feel excited. They're like jumping around the room. They're like, their energy in their voice, it's the application of it, So that's the difference. You want to learn from someone who actually shows you how to use it and walks the talk on stage. I mean, think about it. If you listen to an NLP trainer talk and you feel like sleeping, obviously it's not working, right?
Okay.
Because he's supposed to be able to use words to inspire you, right?
In rule, there's the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah.
From your experience of doing NLP, at least for the past few decades, right? What is the 20% of concepts you felt like really made a big difference to you when it comes to your own self-improvement?
It's like what I mentioned in the previous podcast just now. I would say one of the most powerful things I learned was we create our thoughts and we create our emotions from our thoughts. So a lot of people, they don't control their thoughts. Their thoughts are on autopilot. So you have to learn to control your thoughts. Now, how do you think? We think by asking questions to ourselves and by the pictures we play in our minds. So again, every morning, like I said earlier on, when you wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you say to yourself? Are you aware? Most people are not aware, right? But if you start to be conscious about it, you realize that, in the morning when you wake up, you do have self-talk. Like some people, they wake up in the morning and the first question is, how much longer can I sleep? And if you ask that question, what are you focusing on? You're focusing on going back to sleep, and that puts you into a lazy state. So questions direct your focus affect your feelings. Right? But if you wake up in the morning and the first question you ask is, what can I achieve today? What's exciting to do today? Your state changes, right? You start focusing on doing things. You start feeling great. So NLP is about being aware of the thoughts that in your head, the pictures you're playing, all right, and what you're saying to yourself. It's like some people have this pattern also of always imagining the worst case scenario, right? So let's say the market crashes and they start to imagine, oh my God, the market keeps going down, I'm going to lose all my money, I'm going to be back, right? And they start making all these terrible pictures in their head, But if you visualize and you see, hey, in the long run, the stock's going to come back, it's going to go higher, and that changes your state. So, that's one of the most powerful things. Yeah.
You talked a lot about Tony Robbins, right? I see specifically in your past videos, right? You really mirror him a lot, right?
Yeah.
What does it take to model someone and mirror someone in terms of the fundamentals? Like,
So
how do you do that?
modeling is another very powerful concept about NLP. So I've told people all the years that I've been able to achieve so much in my life, not because I'm smart, but because I'm really good at copying people. I'm really very good at copying people, and that's something we learn in NLP, which is modeling. So, for example, when it comes to public speaking, I've modeled a lot of Tony Robbins. I modeled a lot of Ernest Wong. I modeled a lot of Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, Russell Peters. And modeling is all about observing these people, how they use their facial expression, how they use their tonality, how they use their body language, and picking up the best from all these people to make it yours. All right. So if you ask me, my style of speaking is kind of like a combination of all these people, all right? So when you model someone, the first thing is to model their physiology, their facial expression, model their tonality, model their gestures. The second thing you model is what we call their internal representation, which means modeling their beliefs. So if you want to be a great investor like Warren Buffett, what are his beliefs? You got to model his beliefs. Like for example, one of his beliefs is what? Rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. Right? So what are the beliefs that he has? What are the principles he has? Okay. Then second is modeling people's values. Values are what drives you in life. So if you look at Buffett, again, his values are not so-called showing off. Right? His values are very much contributing, making a difference in the world, and doing what he loves. So you model that as well. Yeah. And when you meet a great person, not everything about them is great, as we know. There are always not so great things about everyone. Okay, so you want to model what's great and to ignore what's not great.
Got it. Is it like a process where you write it down, you record yourself? Like, how does that specific process go? Like, is it really documenting the person's values in a piece of paper?
Yeah, literally writing it down. And in fact, if you take the entire NLP course, there's a whole modeling plan that we do. That you model how their eyes move, you model their whether they see the picture first and they say something to themselves, or they say something first, they see the picture, or their gestures, is it rounded gestures or is it cutting gestures, their tonality, how they move their body. Is very specific. It's literally a blueprint. So modeling is basically photocopying someone's blueprint.
Aside from attending NLP courses by Tony Robbins, right? Because you're no longer running these courses, right? Are there any courses, resources, recommendations that you would refer people to if they're interested in NLP?
Go for Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins. Besides Tony Robbins?
I can't think of anyone close. I can't think of anyone close.
Got it. Interesting.
I may run another one. Me.
Hey, me. Whoa. You got to hear.
The Vietnam people are still trying to get me to run one in Ho Chi Minh City this August. I'm still thinking about it.
Oh, that's good. Maybe a preview in Singapore. Hey, moving on to more general topics, right? There's this popular book called 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson. And I think there's one thing that I read in your book, right, is that you have always been saying things very consistently, even with regards to these very famous authors, right? If you were to write such a book, what would your 12 rules be on the top of your mind?
It's not so much about rules, but I mean, in the book, I wrote this book called Master Your Mind, Design Your Destiny, and I had this framework which I follow. And in this framework, it's called the Ultimate Success Formula, right? So the whole framework is about, number one, being clear about what you want, right? You know, setting very, very clear goals. And you got to focus on the goals every single day, right? Number one. Number two is knowing how to develop a strategy to achieve that goal. And the way to develop that strategy is to, again, model. Is to find people who have already achieved what you want to achieve and model them. So you cut short your learning curve. And the third key is about taking massive action. Is how do you motivate yourself every day to take action? You know? And when you take action, you either move to your goals or not. Right? So if you don't move to your goals, people call it failure. We call it learning experience. So how do you reframe that? How do you take so-called failure and how do you reframe it into a learning experience? And how do you have the flexibility to keep changing your strategy? That if what you do doesn't work, you have to change your approach. Doesn't work, change your approach. Keep changing until you find what works, right? And then the other part of it is your belief systems, right? Because your beliefs affect the goals you set. The beliefs affect your behavior. So you have to examine what are the beliefs you have right now. And some people have very limiting beliefs. Like some people have this belief that other people can do it, I cannot do it. Because they're better than me, they're smarter than me. Or some people have this belief that, because in Singapore it's very restricted, I can't, a lot of limiting, or the belief that I need a lot of capital to start a business. Who says so, right? Or the limiting belief that I must be good in math to be an investor. Who says that, right? So it's examining your beliefs and being able to break those limiting beliefs and having new beliefs that empower you. And then the other part is what we call your value systems. Your values are why you do what you do. It's like two people may want to make $10 million, but they have different why. It's your why. So one person, the why may be to show off, whatever, right? Another person, the why may be to use the money to contribute to their church or their temple, whatever. So a lot of people, the trouble is they may know what they want, they don't know why they want it. They're not clear on their reason. Yeah. So if you get all these things in place, then you can achieve almost anything.
Got it.
Yeah.
Pattern recognition is something obviously you're very good at, and you have taught hundreds of students, right? Are there any specific observations that you have for men specifically?
I don't really know. I wouldn't say between men and women, I don't think there's a difference. Yeah, in the way you motivate yourself and stuff like that. Yeah.
Got it. It's the fundamental principles like what you just
Of
shared
humans,
as well.
yeah.
Got it, got it. All right, moving on to some aspects on business, right? Obviously, Patrick has changed your life, right? So, on the topic of finding business partners, right? I'm not sure if it's luck when you met him, right? But do you think it's luck?
Yeah, I also believe a lot in karma, I guess. And I also believe a lot in you attract what you put out. It's the whole law of attraction thing. So, again, if you, in your mind, you keep on thinking that I need to find a great partner to work with, and I want a partner who is like easygoing, and you keep focusing on that and putting that out in the universe, your energy attracts these people. But if you know, it's the law of attraction, right? You attract what you think about. Yeah.
How did you do it during your university days? Were you like actively doing business? Because how was the relationship like when you met Patrick? Like, how did that relationship grow?
Yeah, so I started my first business at 15, the mobile disco business. And when I went to army, I couldn't run it, so it kind of like closed down. Then after army, when I went to university, I restarted the business, the mobile disco business. So I was running it at first with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and we were looking for more partners to help to carry the speakers and to arrange the shows and all that, right? So in university, there's a lot of project work. So Patrick happened to be in one of the project teams. And in this project team, there were me, Patrick, and 3 other people. And those 3 people cannot do work. Yeah, so only me and Patrick did all the work. So that's when I realized that this guy can do work. This guy is dependable. And then I said, hey, would you be interested to join my business? So that's how he started with the mobile disco business. Create Soul Entertainment.
Oh, and that changed his life and your life.
Yeah.
Is there any advice you have for others finding business partners?
Like
aside from putting whatever out in the universe, any red flags you look out? Red flags. What red flags?
So a few things. I would say the first thing is, for a business to succeed, you need 4 personalities. I don't know if you heard me say this before. Yeah. You need 4 personalities, and these 4 personalities may be from 4 different people, or they may appear in one person or whatever, but you need to have these 4 personalities. So in finding business partners, you have to find people that complement you. Okay, so these 4 personalities are: number 1, you need a creator in every business. The creator is a visionary, the guy with the big idea, the guy who creates things. Okay, then number 1, you need someone who's a manager. So the manager is not particularly the very creative right brain person, it's the very left brain, logical, detail-oriented person who is good at organizing, right? Then you need the specialist. So example, if you want to start a restaurant, the specialist is the cook. You want to start a tuition center, the specialist is the teacher. You want to start a hairdressing salon, the specialist is the hairdresser, right? So when it comes to the, let's say the education business, I'm both the creator and the specialist. Because I'm the guy teaching, but I'm also the guy coming up with all the curriculum and the brand, right? But I know for a fact that I don't like managing people, and I'm not good at executing and following up. That's not my strength, you know? So Patrick is more of the management personality. The 4th is you need a deal maker. A deal maker is someone who loves networking. They love to network, they love to go karaoke, they love to have lunch with people, and I'm not like that. Right? So Patrick's like that. So we are, in a way, a perfect fit. So you have to find people that fit that. And the trouble is that if you are a creator, you find another creator, sure fight. And both of you, big idea, creator, no one do the work. No one can execute. Right? Both of you are managers, also a problem. No one has the creative idea. So you need to find that. Then, of course, the other part is to make sure you work with people that are easygoing and are generous. So I said, keep away from negative and toxic people. I avoid these people like the plague. Once someone is toxic, negative, I just avoid them. I don't care how smart they are. I don't care what connections they have. I don't care what great partner. No, it's not worth it.
You talk about connections, right? So I know you're in YPO,
Yeah.
and obviously you have many friends who are in a high net worth figure, right? What have you learned from them?
I've learned a lot actually. The interesting thing is that when I first joined YPO was 2009, and I think I was one of the youngest members. Of course, not anymore. Right? I was one of the youngest members, and I was actually quite intimidating for me, because I mean, you go in there and they're all much older, right? They're all like 40s and 50s and 60s and all that, and they're all, of course, much richer as well. But one of the things that I realized they all have in common is they're very optimistic people. They are very optimistic, and that's why they're successful. They all come from very different backgrounds. Like one of my close friends in there, he's an asset manager. He manages investments, very, very successful asset manager. And he actually trained to be a chef initially. He went to culinary school. Then later went into banking and then now owns his own asset management company. Another friend of mine also owns a $1 billion hedge fund. Okay? His background, microbiology. Okay? So what I realized about all these people was very different paths. Very different paths, but they're all very optimistic people. They're all like can do. Everything can. There's no such thing as cannot do. You know? And that's what makes them, that's why they're there. And like you all said earlier on, they are very good at people. They are very good at reading people and relationships. Yeah. And the interesting thing is that in my group, because in YPO we are put into small groups of 10 people, we call it a forum, and we meet every month. And my group, we've been together now since 2009. And I think one of the things that I really learned from them is also the humility part of it. Yeah. I mean, in my younger days, I used to be a bit show-off. I used to drive a sports car and all that, right? And then when I joined the group, I realized that, like one of my friends, this guy, I mean, he's like almost a billionaire, all right? And guess what he drives? He rides a scooter. Yeah. And another guy, his family business is like a 150-year-old family business. I mean, these guys are worth hundreds of billions of dollars, and he takes Grab. He doesn't even have a car. So that's the point where in my mind, I was like, then why do I need a car? So that's why now I don't have a car as well. Right? I say, this guy who has got $500 million doesn't even have a car. This guy's riding a scooter. Why do I need a car, right? So that also matured me a lot. Then I realized when you're with people who are really very wealthy, they don't care about all these things. Yeah.
How different or similar would you describe them to the average person walking on the street, besides being optimistic?
You can't tell.
You can't tell.
You can't tell because they dress so simply, They I mean, in fact, my friends in particular, they don't wear any fancy watches or clothes. You can't tell.
All right.
Yeah.
Moving on to business in general, right? Obviously, you have built a very big brand for yourself, right? So, what marketing principles have you learned in this past decades of marketing yourself and putting yourself out there?
I think it all boils down to building a brand is about consistency. I mean, think about it. Why is McDonald's such a strong brand? It's because when you go there, you get what you expect, and it's consistent, it's reliable. Is it the best tasting burger? Okay, to me, I'll say yes, because I love McDonald's. But my dad would say, no, Burger King is better, right? But why is McDonald's more successful than Burger King, right? It's about reliability, it's about consistency. And so I think in building the brand, one of the philosophies we always had was we want to do more than expected. That means when people come to our course, whatever they expect, we wanted to wow them. We wanted to give them how do you say? It's like a wow factor. Like, my God, I don't believe they would do that. And they become raving fans. Okay, so I give you an example like the Patterns of Excellence program. When we first started running it, it was there's module 1 and module 2, 4 days, 4 days. Okay. We started at 9 a.m. Guess what time we ended?
9
p.m.
9 p.m.
Earliest 2 a.m.
Wow.
Earliest.
Okay.
Sometimes drag to 4 a.m. And the next day come back before 9 again.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, when you come to a course, you would think, end at 7, pang kang, go home, right? We end at 2 a.m.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what we say. You create an experience that people will never forget. Because there was so much to teach. There was so much to teach. And a lot of the things that we went through were what we call experiential processes. Like we did this thing called the timeline regression, where we get people to go back. We did a lot of hypnosis as well. We go back to their when they're young, and we reprogram a lot of the things. And sometimes a person going through the experience can take 2-3 hours, especially if they get a block somewhere. Like there's some childhood trauma, we have to help them to get rid. You can't like, hey, sorry, time's up, go. Cannot. They halfway, you have to go through the whole process. Right? Yeah, so stuff like that. Right?
The biggest lesson is being consistent and
and
over-deliver.
and deliver more than expected. And yeah, so I always feel that whatever people pay you $1, you need to give back $5, $10. You need to do that. Yeah.
Wow, okay, that's a good principle.
Yeah.
What limiting beliefs, obviously, what limiting beliefs do you overcome, if any, to go from the 5 to 6 figure range when you were 13 or 14? Like,
When I was 13 to 14?
I think because you earn technically 4 figures in your teens already, right?
Yeah. I think what really blew me away was, let me think, how old was I at that point of time? Yeah, I was still in university. So in university, I was running a few things. First, I was having my mobile disco business. I was doing a lot of the jam and hop and a lot of the dinner and dance for corporations and for a lot of the universities, right? And on the side, I was doing my training. So at the time, I was more like a one-man show, okay? So what I did was I went to the schools in Singapore and I sold them my program, okay? And the biggest breakthrough was when I went back to my old school, Victoria JC, to sell them my study course. So I created a 2-day course, which is how to be an A student, all right? And I think, if I'm not wrong, I charged about $50 a day. So it was like, about $100 for 2 days, right? $100 for 2 days. And VJC allowed me to go into the lecture theatre. It was, I can't remember, a lot of students, right? To do a preview. So basically, I told them that, hey guys, I can teach you how to score straight A's for A levels because I did it, right? So I got them excited, and it was $100, right? And I signed up on that day. The total revenue was about $20,000.
Wow. Okay.
So it's $20,000 revenue for a 2-day program. So that's when I realized that I can make 20K in 2 days. Right? Yeah, and that's really,
How about the 7 to 8 figure? Limiting beliefs you have to overcome from 7 to 8 figure.
I don't know. I've never thought about money in that way. Like, I hit that 7 figure. I've never thought about it that way. It was all about just making the content better and better and reaching more people. But I never really thought about the numbers part of it, actually. Actually, Patrick is the one that's my partner. He's the one that's, focusing on the revenue, the numbers. I never really focused on it. It was like, to me, at the end of the day, okay, how much do we make? But I don't know whether you have watched any of my previous podcasts or that. I did mention this before, that we were in business for, again, start 2002, this is 22 years. This is 22nd year, right? And actually, there was a point of time for about 8 years, we had great revenue. Our revenue was, I think, at that time, 12, 13, 14 million, but we didn't make any money. We were losing money for about 7 years because our costs were so high. Yeah. So, and one of the reasons we were losing money is because we were paying our trainers very well. Our trainers were getting way above the market rate. To give you an example, our trainers that went to do the school's training, our competitor was paying their trainer fixed rate, 4K a month. Our trainer, we pay based on training fee rate, hourly rate. My top trainer was getting 20K a month. So we are paying literally 5 times more than our competitor. So my trainer very happy, right? I cannot make money. So we were literally, for 7-8 years, we couldn't make money. And we had very high costs because we were in Keppel Towers, ground floor, our rent was, I remember my overheads a month was 60,000. And that's just overheads, not including the trainer's fees, not including marketing, just fixed cost of rental and my staff basic salary. Right? So I couldn't make any money. Right? And also because in running the programs, we always wanted to do a lot. Like the Patterns of Excellence program, we erect scaffoldings to do the high element adventure, to do a lot of these things. And it costs a lot of money, thousands and all that. And then, my partner, because Patrick he's not really a trainer, he's more of a business guy. He said, Adam, do we need all that? We don't do that, we can cut costs, can make more money. But I'll say, no, I want that because we need to have the highest quality, right? So in a way, we were willing to sacrifice profits in order to get the best quality, And so in a way, that's how we built the brand. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that when COVID happened, that really made an entirely shift in the business model, right?
Yeah.
You've been running Piranha Profits for the past few years.
Since 2016.
2016, right?
Yeah.
Biggest lessons in the 5 years, since 2016. What biggest lessons do you get from there?
I wouldn't say lessons, but I can tell you the experience. So when I started in 2016, the whole idea was to start doing seminars, doing webinars, and doing online courses. And obviously in 2016, it didn't really work because people were not primed to learn online because there was no COVID, right? So it was very slow. And yeah, it was a lot of effort, but it was very minimal. And then of course, when COVID happened, which we can't control, it totally changed people's habits of learning. People started learning online and it became something that was normal. So that's how the online business now is 90% of our business when it used to be only 5%. And it's not something I planned. You can't plan that. And you can't control that.
They say you almost fell off your chair when you saw your competitors' prices, right? So when it comes to this world of investing and sharing your journey, right? I think one thing that makes you stand out from everyone else, right, is you're radically transparent with your portfolio, right?
Yeah.
What is the thought process behind that? Like you're too transparent with your portfolio. Like what?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Just show. What's wrong with showing? Some people are very paranoid. Oh, Adam, your account number is showing. The hacker can go into your account. I said, I don't think so because there's this thing that even if I go into my account, I can't transfer money into another account that's not in my name. There's this anti-money laundering thing, right? Yeah, so I think some people are paranoid with my account. To me, it's like, what can they do? At the most, they force me. At the most, they close the position for me. I buy it back. Right? So I think transparency is very important. Because there are people out there who teach investing, the theory, but they don't actually invest, then not much credibility, right? Yeah. So I think you need to have skin in the game.
Is there anything that bothers you about your competitors teaching finance education? Because I know in this world, right, it's very polarizing. Oh, you're out to scam people.
Yeah.
At the same time, I do believe the kind of content you really teach people, change people's lives financially, right? What do you think of all that?
Actually, I don't really pay attention to what the competition is doing, really. I mean, Patrick does a lot. And my team does a lot. In fact, my team, they do a lot of competitor analysis, and Patrick sits in those meetings where they study the competitors, what's their price. I don't give a heck. I don't even attend. I don't even care. And when they tell me, it's like, okay. Because to me, it's like, for what? Why should I care what they do? I just want to focus on what I'm doing. Yeah. So I don't really bother. So in fact, a lot of the competitors that you ask me, I may not know them unless I already know them. Yeah.
I think in one of your tweets a very long time ago, you said that probably you were stupid to not be a fund manager like Cathy Wood, right, where she earned millions in fees, right? Have you ever thought of being a fund manager like Cathy Wood?
That was actually being very sarcastic, right?
Oh, I know.
Yeah. So answer is no. I've got no intention and no desire to do that because I don't want to manage people's money. It's too much
Interesting.
headache.
You don't want to manage people's money.
I don't want to manage people's money. It's too much headache. And here's the thing. If I were to manage people's money, I don't think I can get as good results as I'm doing now. Okay, I tell you why. Because when you manage people's money, you can't control the fund flows. You can't control when people put in money. You can't control when they redeem the money. Okay? So, and I've got friends who are fund managers, so they tell me these problems. Okay? So, for example, in COVID, the early part of COVID 2020, the market crashed, right? That's the best time to buy. So that's when I was buying like crazy. But a lot of my fund manager friends told me that during the COVID, a lot of the top bank CIOs were bearish on the market. They expected it to go down even more. Most people were very pessimistic. They said it'll take years to recover. And a lot of clients panicked and redeemed their money. They pull out of the hedge fund. So mention your hedge fund manager. You want to buy, right? But your clients all redeem. Then when they redeem, you have to return their money. You're forced to sell. So you end up forced to sell at the bottom. Right?
Lock in your loss.
Yeah. And then you redeem, the clients take the money because they panic, right? Then later when the market go up, and the market like starting to get overpriced, then people all want to come in already and they deploy their money. So you as a fund manager got all this money, right? You have to deploy, right? But it's overpriced. But you're forced to deploy because if you don't deploy, they will be scolding you. Why aren't you using our money?
Oh, wow.
So by being a fund manager and you can't control the fund flows, sometimes you are forced to buy at the top and sell at the bottom. So the reason why a lot of fund managers may underperform the market, sometimes it's not their fault, no? Although sometimes it is. But the other times it's not their fault because they can't control the fund flows.
Wow.
You know?
What's the point of a fund manager?
You know what I'm saying? But I manage my money, all right? It's my money. When it's drop, you're paying, I buy. When it's top, I don't buy, you know? And of course, the other thing is that 70% of investing is psychology. When it's my money, okay, and the market's crashing, I'm cool. But if you're managing people's money, the auntie, uncle call, the market crash, and they every day, it will affect you, you know? Yeah. And you start to panic, you know? No, thank you. No, thank you. I manage my own money. Right?
Are there any other stories from fund managers? Because I feel like, not to say they are a misunderstood group of people. You keep saying, I know you keep saying, oh, they can't even outperform the S&P over 20 years. Which is a fact.
90% of them, 95% of funds, whether hedge funds, mutual funds, can't outperform the market over a 10-year period.
Then you feel so sad to be a fund manager.
No, don't feel sad for them. They are paid very well.
Oh, they're paid very well.
They are paid very well. They get a percentage of the assets under management. So whether you make money or lose money, they make a lot of money. Don't feel sorry for them.
Okay.
No.
Interesting. Moving on to the last general topics of relationship, quick questions. You previously shared on Raina's podcast here the 6 rules for relationship, right? Intimacy, don't go to sleep until a fight is resolved, support everything a partner does, never complain, resent, compete. Both partners need to focus on making each other happy. Don't disagree in front of children. You have not wrote a book specifically about relationships, but like, are there any other things you'd love to add to that list to make relationship flourish in people's lives?
Okay, I think the one thing I didn't mention, which I think is very important, is to keep making sure you're meeting your partner's needs every day. So what are the needs? So again, it goes back to what I learned from NLP, which is we all have the 6 human needs, okay? So let me run through them again. Number 1 is the need for certainty. So the question is, the way you behave every day, do you make your partner feel certain and secure that you'll always be with them no matter what? You need to make them feel very secure, right? So like, for example, my wife and I, everything is a joint account. I don't own anything in my own name, it's all joint. So she knows if anything happens, she's safe, right? I want to give her that security. Then number 2 is the need for variety. We all have a need for variety, for surprise. So do you surprise your partner? Are you spontaneous? Do you excite her? Do you run up behind her and then, surprise her with roses? You need to do that. You need to keep it alive, because you know that a lot of marriages where they are together for many, many years, there's a lot of security, but you're bored with the fella. Right? Person doesn't excite you anymore, keep doing the same thing the same old way, keep going to the same restaurant, you're bored, right? So you need to get the person excited, right? So one of the things that I do my best to do is I always say every day I must make my wife laugh. And my wife is also like that. She's got my same crazy humor. So we always make each other laugh. And although we are in our 50s, 2 of us can be very childish. We can talk up like teenagers and say really stupid things. Right? And that is what creates a spark, right? Then the third need is we have the need for connection. We all have a need for connection. So intimacy is very important. You need to, hold hands. You need to hug. You need to be intimate. You cannot say, "Oh, so long already, hold hand for what?" No, you need to do that. And the fourth one is the need for significance. So you need to always make the person feel special. All right. In the early years, I was not aware of that. So, I would go out with my wife, that time who was my girlfriend, and initially my wife in the early years, and people would come up to me on the street, hey Adam, take picture, all that, right? Then my wife would be like, then you don't blame her if she feels not important, So I always make it a point that, I always tell people that, this is my wife, and, because of her, I was able to do all this. You got to make them feel important, make them feel special, right? Recognize them. Then the next need is the need for growth. So are you growing together as a couple? We all need to feel we're growing. So you need to learn things together. Like my wife told me 3 days ago, she's interested to join this mentoring class, to mentor people. And actually, I've learned all this before already. But I said, I'll join you for the class.
Oh.
Right? Because, you want to learn things together. My wife is now taking a Pilates instructor course to become a Pilates instructor. And a lot of times, guess who's the guinea pig? Me. So I'm the guinea pig being a student, right? Learn together, right? And then last thing is contribution. We all need to feel that we're contributing. So you need to allow each other to contribute to make each other's lives better. So every day ask yourself, are you meeting your partner's 6 needs?
That's comprehensive.
Because if you're not, someone else will.
Wow. Okay.
If you don't make them feel special, someone else will make them feel special. Like the next door neighbor.
Oh.
Or the gardener.
Right? Yeah. This is just a personal question. Any tips on proposing?
Well, I pushed my wife in the pool. That was the way she proposed. I pushed her in the pool and I jumped in as well. And I said, we take the dive together.
Oh,
it was very corny, right? It's like, you jump, I jump. Yeah.
Wow.
I think to me, the wedding is not important. The proposal is not important. The gift is not important. All this is not important. The important thing is, these 6 things I talk about. Sometimes you find that you go to the people with the most, extravagant weddings, it don't last. Marriage won't last.
The more extravagant, the
more it won't last, right? Those very simple, in the HDB flat, the void deck, it won't last very long, right? Because you know that it's something deeper than that. You don't need all this to show.
So simple.
Simple.
Okay.
Yeah, simple.
All right. Moving on to quick questions. Any questions? One is something you would do, even if you know you'll fail at it.
Well, for a fact, I know that a lot of things that I will do, I will not get it right the first time, whatever it is. So I will only do something if I find it exciting, I guess. Yeah. So I'm not sure how to answer that.
No worries.
What's tell you what I'll never do though.
Okay, what will you never
I'll never go on a roller coaster.
Oh, really?
Those crazy ones. Yeah. Or bungee jumping. I won't.
What's the best advice have you ever received?
Best advice?
What's the best advice have you ever received?
There's not one. I mean, just so many. But it's every little thing I mentioned. About, I think a lot of it is encapsulated in the speech given by Steve Jobs during his commencement address in Harvard, where he said, don't waste your life living someone else's life. Yeah, that we're going to be dead soon. We're all going to be dead soon. So live each day as if it's your last.
Wow, okay. That's deep. What's the worst advice have you ever received?
Worst advice? I think I can't think of a lot. I would say, but I guess one thing, is shorting the market.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, in my early years, I used to short the market a lot. In fact, I used to, every stock I long, I short another one. I used to do that all the time. Wow. Yeah. And then over the years, I realized that it doesn't pay to short the market. That once in a while, your shorts can make a lot of money. Once in a while, but eventually you're going to give it all back. And I got the confirmation by listening to a speech by Stanley Druckenmiller, who is one of the top traders in the world. And he gave a speech, I think it was to CNBC about a few weeks ago. And he said the same thing, which was quite surprising because, Stanley Druckenmiller is known as a person who shorts the market very frequently. And he admitted, he said, when I look back for the last 40 years and I add back all my short trades, I think in the end I didn't make money.
Oh.
And I mean, if this guy, who's one of the top traders in the world, says that, it confirmed what I realized. It doesn't pay to short the market. But it's very fun.
Fun.
But if you're really interested in making money, that's why, I mean, in the past, I used to do a lot of hedging as well. If I think market in a correction, I'll hedge the market, I buy put options. I used to do that. Nowadays, I don't even bother. Because I realized that, like I give you example 2020, right? 2020, when the market first went down, I was buying a lot of put options and I made a lot of money. I made a lot of money on puts when it went down, right? But when it went up, I still had puts that I then lost it back again. So when I look at all the times I shorted the market, I used put options and all that, I did make money. I did. But it was so little. It's not worth the effort. If I had just ignored it and just stayed long, because I show this in my course and previews as well, right? If you look back at the last 73 years of history, okay, 78% of the time, the market goes up. So anytime you short the market, remember, you only have a 22% probability of being right. And in the long run, you can't make money.
Okay, wow. Okay, so don't short the market. Don't short the market. In 1 year's time, what tangible events will need to happen to make it the best year for your life?
I can move into my house.
Oh, is it a bungalow right now? Is it or like?
No, it's a semi-D.
It's a semi-D.
Which I bought 20 years ago.
20 years ago?
20
Why
years
did it take
ago.
so long?
No, I bought the place 20 years ago. I've been staying there for 20 years. And of course, when I first bought it, I did renovate it, right? But I've not renovated it since I bought it 20 years ago. Until last year, I decided to renovate it. Yeah, so it's taken now almost 1.5 years for the renovation to be complete. And yeah, once I move in, I'll die there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is too much hassle and too much trouble to go through it because it was literally almost a tear down of everything. Yeah, and then build a new story. So it's like 3-story, right? Yeah, so it's almost a new house. Yeah.
Last question. There's this quote from Naval Ravikant, right? He says that desire is a contract that you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want, right? For a person like you who has achieved so much, right? What other desires do you still have left?
I don't have. No, that's why I keep saying that, happiness is not a goal to be achieved. Like a lot of people say that when I buy that car, I'll be happy. When I win the lottery, I'll be happy. When I make that first 5 million, I'll be happy, right? But if you define it that way, what happens is that you may be happy for a while, then the happiness doesn't last. Then you have to find something else again to get to be happy. And then it doesn't last again. And in the process of achieving it, that journey, you're not happy all the way because you're not there yet, right? Which is insane because if you define it that way, that means 99.9% of your life, you're unhappy. Because you're always pursuing something that will make you happy, okay? So to me, I believe don't achieve to be happy. Instead, happily achieve. So enjoy the journey, enjoy the process.
Got it. On that note, all right, yeah, thanks so much, Adam, for coming on this podcast. Do you have any message for Sally, Samantha, and Kelly?
I think I tell them everything they want to say to hear almost every day. Yeah.
All right. And thanks so much for doing this podcast. I'll leave all the video descriptions of Adam's course materials. I believe you also have a webinar coming up as well. So if you can, do go ahead for that as well. And thanks so much, Adam, for coming on this podcast.
Okay, welcome. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Hey friends, if you've enjoyed the podcast, I really recommend you checking out the part 2 of this podcast by Chloe. In the video over here, she goes through a lot in more detail about the markets, investing, and at the same time still distilling the simple things you can do if you want to put yourself in the financial market. So I really recommend you check this video out and I'll see you in the next one.